Welly, welly, well. What is today's date? The 9th? Yeah. April 9th, 2026. Man, Walter Cronkite, CIA operative, all this. What a big heartbreak because everybody trusted him. Then it turns out he's a fucking spy. But he would have had every day that he announced the date. There's something new going on all the time now. But when it gets down to the point to where you're trying to hide some big secret, and that's why you let it out that the entire world's being run by cannibalistic, Satanist, pedophile blood drinkers, I don't know what kind of secret that could hide that's worse than itself. It sounds to me like we're all screwed. Anyway, in California here, one of the neat little tricks that they're trying to do. Now, we might be the recipients of some of Medi-Cal and our SSI. Why not? That doesn't make us bad people. You guys have been giving it away to every scumbag that's from every other country for years now, and still are, and still paying. They're still doing better off than we are. So why can't Americans have a little some too? Isn't that what we were all paying in forever? I have a problem with Social Security. All we're getting back, we're not even getting the full amount of the Social Security that we paid into. We're getting part of it, and we get taxed for that. Why aren't we getting interest on the money that was taken away from our hands? We could have invested it or done any number of things and made it grow, but instead we're getting a diminished version, not an increased version. So one of the latest things when it comes to like the social insurance, which everybody has to have, medical insurance, it doesn't really help us a lot.
We don't go to doctors.
We don't go to doctors. We don't trust them because, same with pharmacists and all, they all knew before 2020 that this shit was bullshit. If you're a doctor or a pharmacist and you've held a baby in your arms and given it a shot and it died or had a severe adverse reaction, how can you sleep with yourself? Be that as it may, that's why we don't trust the medical community, because it turns out, among other things, that they are like car mechanics. Yeah, they can fix things, but they don't want to fix everything because then they work themselves out of a job.
Well, people don't make money.
Yeah, and then it turns out that Big Pharma is a piece of shit, and everything's poison, and the poison is so prevalent now in the air, the water, the land, food, that no one can really even deny it. And where we're at, the air is a big problem. I mean, they're playing tic-tac-toe and Jenga in the sky with chemtrails. Oh no, there's no contrails. Here's a thought. Contrails, condensed water vapor, would evaporate in the sun. It doesn't hang there all day long and make these spectacular sunsets. Great sunsets, except that nature doesn't like straight lines, and it doesn't make rows of straight lines. So, I don't know. People are deluded. They just want to believe whatever. I mean, why is it always people are wanting to make excuses for the government? They're trying to soften the blow. And it's like, well, you're dying with us, dude. This shit's bad.
Your turn will come.
But that even, as a matter of fact, that whole topic, if you bring this up, this could relate to the next topic, which is medical health. Nowadays, everything to do with medical health, and not even if you're on Medi-Cal, even if you're on private insurance, you just don't know it. Doctors and nurses and all these people are taking notes, and they are notating your mental health because they want to make it so that everybody, behavioral health, mental health, and continuum of care, blah, 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 blah. And it's HIPAA. I just got done having a conversation, and when you ask them for any kind of help, they don't really have any help. They have more numbers that you could spend your time. So I want help doing this thing, but I got to call up these people, and then they give me phone numbers, and I got to call up those people who get more phone numbers, and then I spend my days calling instead of doing the thing that I need to do. So it's actually anti-help. They've wasted my time by calling all these phone numbers, but I've sure had to give each and every one of them every little detail of my existence, including stool size and all that shit. But like last year when I had to go to the hospital and I got out, they gave me the discharge papers with my little file. I went for a thing on my foot. And the first thing they said, diagnosed with homeless. Is homeless a disease? Because if it is, then how is everybody judging and punishing me for it? But either way, I could have had that boo-boo on my foot, whether I was homeless or a rich guy. The fact of the matter is, homeless is being added to the mental health lexicon, and they're trying to corral it over onto the mental health. That if you're homeless, you're mentally unhealthy.
And crazy, don't forget. Really crazy.
Well, crazy. But I would say, although there could be a portion of that true, because if you're homeless, of course you're mentally unhealthy. Who would do that willingly? It's by force to begin with, and it's by collective social judgment that keeps everybody there and keeps people getting punished, harassed, hounded, arrested, all that shit. I say, whether it's your social station in life, or maybe you got diabetes, or maybe you have any number of common ailments, if your body is not healthy, your mind isn't either. And so I think that applies much more broadly than just economic station in life. And when it comes to hypocrisy, California and the United States in general, you let millions upon millions of illegals in that were homeless in their own country, and that's why they came here, and they got the royal treatment, red carpet, money, housing, medical, school, all that shit. Help. American citizens that are homeless across the nation, numbers under 1 million according to the official count, under 1 million. There's not even 1 million homeless in America. And yet they just get fucked with, and they're trying to kill off most of the homeless is middle-aged to elderly white people.
Yeah.
And so you want to talk racist, anytime you have a defined racial demographic showing, then there's obviously someone's got deliberate discrimination. I don't even care if we give away shit from our pantry in America. But why can't we get some too? Why are all the old white people in America that aren't rich, or why are they all getting kicked to the fucking... Really? We didn't do that when I was younger. It wasn't like that. Maybe they were boring, maybe they were crotchety, but they still weren't vilified. Now you are like a despised creature if you're an old white person. And this thing about the mental health, because I defy anybody to... You want to say people are mentally unhealthy? I think you're probably right. Probably most of the world is fucking batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Who are they? How are they measuring how crazy? Have we got a scale for sanity? Because if you look at sanity as a bell curve, maybe not everybody's all crazy this way, not everybody's not too sane this way. Sanity would just be the like polar opposite of insane. And if it's far away from the median average, then you're just as out of touch as a crazy person. So who are the sane people? What, the billionaires that are drinking blood, pedoing, entertainment figures that are trying to keep their names off of Diddy's list or whatever, sports heroes. They're all paid way too much and totally out of touch with reality. How about doctors? Oh yeah, that's another subgroup that everybody has to worship, and they're automatically imbued trust. Where did that happen? Doctors, they used to always say, you can always go get a second opinion, we recommend it. Because the thought process is that doctors knew they could be wrong. And everybody else agreed with that. Nowadays, you are not allowed to question doctors, and they share information from pharmacy to pharmacy, doctors to doctors. They know your situation. When you go see a new hospital, an ER, they know all about you. They know what you've been taking. They know where you've been seen. And where did they get that information from? What if I want to get a second opinion, but I want an objective, unfiltered second opinion that they are not contaminated with the diagnosis of the previous doctor? But that's not the case. You know, and we just, as a society, we pay them way too much. They operate like they're in a production line. Not that they're caring for a patient. They're just ching, 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 and the the medical industry has become a all-consuming monster of its own. And then there's the medical billing end of it, which is really what it's all about. So they convince you through all this ritual and rigmarole that this has got to be a trustworthy institution, and so therefore the billing comes and everybody pays it. But really, it turns out that many of the things that we've all operated as being true assumptions throughout the years are complete fabrications. Much of the world and the knowledge that we have is just totally made up out of thin air by some motherfuckers that wanted to just, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, all these people, they started this shit by taking over colleges, universities, grade schools, hiring all these people and just putting forth some kind of like subtle agenda within their framework of fantasy facts. I mean, there's a lot of things that have nobody's that can think of has had tetanus. Lockjaw's not a real thing. viruses. Not one of them has ever been has isolated successfully. They always add stuff to it, and then they look at the destroyed debris, and they say these particles of some kind of biological matter, that's what a virus is. That's not true. I want to see it do it. How is it that viruses are just written, they just do code. They're not even an animate object. But yet you got to take the dead virus to kill the live virus. Wait a minute, I thought they weren't either one, dead or alive. So there's some bullshit right there. And the whole thing with Fauci and the COVID and all this shit and masks and PCR tests and everything that happened, nobody's getting punished. And the reason is because if they did that, then they wouldn't be able to do it again. But they do. And thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more, hundreds of thousands of people literally died from that vaccine. It's an experimental vaccine. Well, you know what the thing with an experimental is? They change recipes to find out what works. So why would you take an experimental thing and hope that it works? Go experiment on somebody else. Give me the finished product. They're never going to have, it's not ever going to get FDA approval because it's not real. It's modeled after some shit that they have a patent for. How did they happen to have patents on these things that paid Fauci and all his ilk millions and millions of dollars already in place? I mean, you know, this whole thing is just, and yet it's left this lasting stain on the psychology of humanity, because you see people now, even now, when they know masks are bullshit, they're still wearing them. So now if you're a person in a store and you got a job, you're doing a stocker, and you got a fucking mask on, and I'm this homeless guy that's walking in there just buying a Pop-Tart, I would say out of the two, the person wearing the dangerous mask that doesn't protect them from anything, they are less sane than I. Therefore, if you want to start grabbing up people and saying, for public safety, we're going to have to gather up all the loonies and put them somewhere, better start with those people that are doing shit for what. And say hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Tracy, way back when, pegged that shit early. She's got an intuitive sense of bullshit. Masks aren't about protecting you from microscopic type viruses that would slip underneath anyway. It's just the first piece of a uniform. And that's really what it was. Masks. Oh man, the whole thing with the pandemic. Hey, look, I love drinking, I love smoking weed, and yet you can't tell me that liquor stores and weed shops were essential business. If you really had a fucking sickness, those would have to be closed down. You know, but schools, churches, all that kind of shit, that's bad for you. But this thing about being homeless is a disease, it's a mental disease, and that if you say the wrong thing when you're in your doctors, they're going to take note of it and include it in your medical file. They're doing a psychological. Look, my MD is not necessarily qualified to make a psychological evaluation of me. They might be able to do a generalized thing, but they're not. They're into the biology of the world. They're not into psychology. So who granted them the authority to make an assessment on me or anybody else? And I don't dig this fact that because we got poor, all of a sudden, now you could assume our judgment is clouded or our reasoning is faulty. Bullshit. You want to talk about faulty reasoning? Well, like half of the world's doubting Trump and his methods. So he's leader of the free world or whatever. Who isn't somebody saying, well, that guy's crazy as fuck? Or a lot of somebodies? So before everybody just goes along with the fucking public policy, maybe we should all think about things. I would like to see the entire world start thinking more, because we have thrown that out and we let phones and Google and all this bullshit, the internet, do all our thinking and entertainment and everything. We don't even know what's enjoyable unless we're told. Oh, does it have a lot of likes? Oh, then it must be funny. I mean, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, and I don't need anybody to tell me. I might be a little bit disturbed mentally, but that's not because of me. That's because I'm disturbed at the state of the world, which has deteriorated into near barbarism. We are, and if you wanted to talk about mental health, how come you have so many people either going dark side or talking Jesus God shit? That's, all of them sound like kind of like semi-fantasy to me. Because if you're like, I'm a science guy, math guy, I need to see things and believe them. Well, you might see the effects of them, but you're not going to see those entities. And then again, what about the latest Artemis moon mission? Oh, I believe they did that because they showed all the... No, they didn't. They didn't. That if they were trying to bolster their fucking credibility over claims of fake NASA footage on the moon of the Apollo missions, well, they sure didn't do it, because everything they did seemed to verify that. And now you got me wondering, fuck, all these conspiracies are all true? Please don't let the flat earthers be true. But who knows? Because they've been lying to us all along. As far as I know, the only thing I know is what I've seen and done. And I think that goes for everybody. But if you're trusting anything you ever learned, anything you ever heard, saw, then you're misinformed, because even if they told you an actual truth about something, it was only a half truth at best. They didn't tell you about motive. So fuck the whole medical thing with mixing. Oh, he doesn't look good, so he must not be. Well, yeah. If you're sick in the body, you're sick in the mind. Just take it as that. Because nobody that's in pain is ever nice.